Evel Knievel has made the death-defying leap into comics, and here's a look at the San Diego Comic-Con panel with special guests Joe Pennington of the Evel Knievel Museum, Ringo Award-winning writer Rylend Grant, and Evel's son, Kelly Knievel. I'm Ari Nelson, editor at Half Evil. Let's jump into it. Evel Knievel is writing into comics again, and you know what? I do have one very important question for you, Kelly. How did your dad make all of those jumps with those two massive balls hanging under it?
It's a good start. Yeah, we're off to a good start.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, I've been living in the Knievel house. It was something different than we can all imagine. So what was, just give us a picture of what, Saturday was like in the Knievel house.
People associate my dad with Hollywood, kind of, but there was no acting. He was the same exact guy at the breakfast table as he was when he was performing. So there was no difference when he went out and made a jump and when he came home. And so Saturday morning was like a boot camp, Evel Knievel boot camp, I guess you'd call it. We had a list of jobs to do and missions to accomplish, and in between my dad's next, wherever he was going.
Why should we even have a museum of this guy? What is his significance in the world?
Evel Knievel was the pioneer of action sports. So if your generation knows about Tony Hawk or the Olympic skiers, X Games, everything, all of that came from Evel Knievel.
Why Hawk?
Okay, I get to talk first about the history of the Evel Knievel comics, and you're taking over quite a legacy, but this one came out in 1974 by Marvel Comics. It's not a comic, it wasn't a monthly title, but it's an advertisement for different kind of toys that Ideal Toy Company came out with.
Yeah, Joe and I were talking about this, and there's an interesting artistic legacy to this thing, because a lot of us, I'm looking around the crowd, and we grew up in the 80s playing with toys. And all of the content that we consumed in the 80s, where we were watching Silverhawks or He-Man or G.I. Joe, it is teaching you to play with the toys. It is teaching you to lust after and buy the toys. And this thing is literally a collaboration with Ideal Toys hires Marvel to write this thing, and it is a lesson on how to acquire and then play with the Evel Knievel toys. And it's like they need to have a conversation, and Evel's like, "Hold on, let's go into my scramble van and have some refreshments." and then there's like an announcer that comes in and is like, the scramble van is available at fine toy stores everywhere. And yeah, so I feel like, it was this comic book and maybe a few others that really set the stage for what 80s kids entertainment would be. It's a historical document.
What's the vision for the new comic book?
The vision for the new comic book, it is more substantial, I think. So, here's the thing, is there was Robert Craig Knievel, and then there was Evel Knievel. Mm-hmm. And they were different, and Robert Craig Knievel played this character, Evel Knievel, and then maybe over time kind of actually became Evel Knievel, and then later in his life started moving away from Evel Knievel and became more Robert Craig again, and that is such an interesting arc for me, just in terms of the reading I do, and I wasn't there. Kelly can probably, tell you a lot more about that, but he was a folk hero. He was a real deal superhero. He got on a motorbike and did things that blew people's minds. He was Captain America. And I always thought that was so interesting. And it was interesting to see, well, Evel Knievel was one thing, and then the movie happens, and they kind of take everything that Evel was doing and they kind of turn the volume up on it. And then real Evel kind of becomes that guy and then turns the volume up on that. And so it is interesting. It's like there's a little kayfabe in it. There's a little kind of professional wrestler-ness to it. And I feel like every legendary professional wrestler was just doing an Evel Knievel impersonation. We don't talk about it much, but he kind of launched the WWE. You know, there's no Hulk Hogan, there's no Rock, there's no Stone Cold Steve Austin without Evel Knievel. But he's such an interesting character, and so I wanted to take that character, take that folk hero, and inject him into an actual adventure, a narrative. And this is not unprecedented. They've done it a couple of times. There was a pilot, Evel Knievel pilot, starring Sam Elliott, where Evel is traveling with his stunt show. They roll into town. There's some sort of, it reminds me of the Santo movies. Do you remember, you know, Santo, the luchador, really in the 60s, Santo was this huge star, this huge international star, and he was a professional wrestler. And the wrestling show would roll into town, they'd be setting up, and then some ill would befall the town. There were, it was cartel members that were roughing people up, or it was, it's like a mummy's attacking the town or something like that. And Santo was a hero. And so he would have to leave the wrestling show, go take care of the mummy, come back, put on the show, and roll out of town. So that was kind of the Sam Elliott show. Well, so Viva Knievel in the 70s is another kind of whack at this, where...
Third.
Yeah. Leslie Nielsen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like all-star cast. But so Evel is playing himself. And again, he's traveling with his stunt show. He gets kind of duped into going down into Mexico because drug runners want to use his caravan to smuggle drugs in. And so Evel ends up matching wits with drug runners and then coming back. So again, this approach is not unprecedented. The movie is interesting. It's not without its warts, but I like it a lot. It kind of reminds me of it's really influenced by like Rockford Files episodes and that kind of dirty 70s look. And so I wanted to do that. And when I first started talking to Kelly, because Kelly was like, what the hell do you want to do with this? And
So just real quickly, what is your experience with comics? Do you read comics? Do you have any experience with comics?
No, none.
So when I came to Kelly, my original pitch was like, okay, so I want to make him an adventurer. I want to inject him into a narrative. And so what is Evel's No Country for Old Men or his Smoking the Bandit? And that was where we started. And so we start kind of mapping out this adventure, but there is this thing that happens where it's like, this is he is playing a character, but he's an actual historical figure, and there's all this amazing history. And when you really start to dig into who this guy was and what he stood for, fact is more interesting than fiction. And so whatever I would make up is not remotely as interesting as what Evel Knievel actually did and said. And so we decided to make the comic book kind of a work of historical fiction. And, Evel Knievel fans, the tried and true fans, would want to show up and see kind of a greatest hits album. And younger fans, new fans, need to be educated. They need to be told why he's so iconic and so interesting. And so we play with the actual history. And issue 1 starts out at Caesars and is about the Caesars jump. And issue 4, our final issue in this first story arc, takes place at Snake River when he jumps the Snake River Canyon. And we hit a lot of nice, interesting, actual historical milestones in between. But while that is happening, there is this adventure and there is this intrigue, and he wrestles and matches wits with a Hell's Angels like biker gang, which again is kind of rooted in reality. So you take it, and just like Evel did, you turn it up just a little bit, and you end up with a really interesting thing. Yeah.
Coming to that, I'm going to go back this way. So I had a wonderful piece of art over here. We're talking about his tangle with the Hell's Angels.
Okay, so what happened was the Hell's Angels were like an outlaw biker gang. Well, they're not like, they still are, but at the time, my dad always put on a red, white, and blue suit, and whenever he would give a speech, they would introduce him sometimes as a guy that's going to set the Hell's Angels back 100 years, because he didn't like drugs and he didn't stand for anything that the Hell's Angels did. So he was jumping in the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and after the jump, he drove his motorcycle back, and one of the Hell's Angels stood up and threw a tire iron at him as he was driving by. So one of the guys that worked for my dad was a big tough guy, and he ran over and he tackled the Hell's Angels guys, and then 6 or 7 Hell's Angels guys jumped up and they went to help the other Hells Angels guy, and the crowd just exploded. Like the people came out of the stands and attacked the Hells Angels. I mean, literally threw them in the hospital. So that's where that story comes from.
He literally driving his bike basically into the middle of this fight because his own guy is getting wailed on, and it's like, you're not gonna leave your guy. Like, that is like, he's gonna stop the whole show to go make sure his guy's okay. And
then as soon as he did that, then people came out of the crowd.
I should say that issue 2 of the comic book is called The Cow Palace.
All right.
Yeah, and kind of kicks off the whole, in earnest, really kicks off the Hells Angels. And so, I mean, that's the, we have Hells Angels in the 70s, and so this thing also kind of becomes this kind of homage and this love letter to these great, biker movies that we saw in the 60s and the 70s, like Born Loser. We're very much casting Evel Knievel as kind of a Billy Jack-like character, and just a rootin' tootin' ass kicker that you love.
Right on.
This question is for Kelly. What was your perspective of Snake River Canyon?
I was 14. So my perspective on Snake River Canyon is just lucky to be alive. It was just pure luck. The wind was blowing and blew him back against a canyon wall and tumbled down on the only sandbar in the half mile either side, and just barely scraped up his face. And I mean, if you ever saw the sky cycle, it's a tin can. It's like getting in a tin can and thinking you're going to fly over the other side of the canyon. So it was just sheer luck. I don't know how he made it, but man had 9 lives. Look at everything else he's survived.
And so what is it like? He's getting ready to do this, and he meets with the family before, and what's happening? Are you asking him not to do it, or are you?
No, you don't ask my dad not to. Dad, don't do this. What's okay, Kelly?
No, but maybe not then. Maybe not then. Does anyone ever say seriously, or you guys are just on on the train?
Don't tell him my
Don't
dad.
tell me.
Like, come on.
This is what I wanted to hear from you.
He said he's going to jump over the canyon. What do you think his kids are going to talk him out of it?
No. I'm just
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Amazing.
There was no meeting. It's just, we're all going to the canyon.
Yeah.
We're going to jump over the canyon and
See what happens.
We'll see you when we're done.
Show up, see what happens.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. My dad didn't jump over canyons.
But he's got a whole story, and what was so cool about him is that he's not a comic book character, that he really did fall to the bottom, a mile to the bottom of the canyon and live, and survived all these stunts. And then he had a life after sports too. That was just fascinating and equally as courageous to me when he found redemption at the end and got baptized.
I think that's my favorite Evil quote, and I don't remember the exact quote, but he's like, people have called me a lot of things. They call me a con man. They call me they call me a this. They call me a that. He's like, but when you're on that motorcycle and you got the pedal down and you're hitting a ramp at 100 miles an hour, con man goes out the window. You're either doing it or you're not. And I thought that was so interesting. And for me, I mean, I did not see Evel jump live, but I grew up, my dad owned bars my whole life. And so I grew up in a bar. And I remember seeing Evel jump, and it was probably replays of ABC Wide World of Sports or something like that on like a Saturday afternoon. And I remember, bars were raucous, and you couldn't get their attention for anything. Maybe if I grew up in Detroit, maybe there's a Tigers game on. But man, if he was going to jump, and these are replays, and people are silent, and they're not ordering drinks. My dad would have to turn the TV off because people would stop ordering. And they want to see this, and they're just riveted by him. And I just remember watching, and it's like, man, these guys don't get excited about anything. They don't get wrapped up in anything. But this guy has literally stopped their world and is demanding their attention. And that was so powerful. And then just the way he was talked about, it was just like, this is the measure of a man. This is who we all aspire to be. this is the biggest, baddest motherfucker lowdown in the town. And it's, again, these are working class guys working a stool in Detroit. These are bad dudes, but they're like, but they're kissing Evel's. They don't know him. They're not in a room with them, but it's like, man, this guy, see kid, this. And for me, I am a dirtbag kid. I grew up in a housing project in Detroit. And people that come from where I came from, they do not leave. They're born, they live, they die all within about 5 miles. They do not leave and move to LA and become screenwriters and TV writers and comic book publishers. They do not meet Knievels. It's one thing I became fond of saying recently is a lot of people get excited about meeting Kennedys. I get excited about meeting Knievels. So that's my royal family. But man, just watching, Evel was a dirtbag kid like me from a mining town and was never given anything and was dealt a really shitty hand and got knocked down 100 times and got up 101 times. And there was a lesson in that.
To tell the story, I mean, the man was so riveting in real life that, comic book story is going to be even better, and hopefully a lot of kids will learn some more about him, and we'll sell some comic books and some toys. And, Evel was a big inspiration to all of today's extreme sports. I mean, if you look around at, let's just say Travis Pastrana and Matt Hoffman, I mean, the biggest guys in Tony Hawk, the biggest guys in skateboarding and BMX and racing and extreme sports, motorcycle stuff. Every guy's inspired by Evel Knievel. And, there's a reason that every person was inspired by him, because he was such an original man. No one ever thought or could carry themselves like my dad did. And yeah, that's a story worth telling to people.
What was that thing that your dad would say about you and your brother Robbie?
Oh yeah, my brother got my dad's balls and I got his brains, so I much prefer the brains part, yeah.
Yeah, but you talk about Evel inspiring extreme athletes, and so I have this is a huge scar, and I could literally fit my fist in it when it happened. I raced BMX bikes. I was on I was sponsored, and I was, from the time I was like 12 to 15, I was on a Dyno Junior racing team, and was going over a huge jump like Evel Knievel, and the bike got away from me, and I landed on the bike, and I had padded pants on like you were when you race. It's about 1.5 inches of foam on the pants, and when I landed on the bike, it tore through the pants and tore through my. But that's my Evel Knievel injury.
So you were born to do this, right?
I think so, and yeah, now I'm taking this leap. Lunacy runs in my family. I will jump off anything, literally and figuratively, and I think I think this is in my blood.
If you're looking for more comic book content, like and subscribe to the channel, and check out Evel Knievel, The Last Gladiator, on Kickstarter. This is R.E. Nelson. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy landings!